Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In this video I want to talk about the difference between intentional living and opportunistic living. Now what are they, you may say? As we open up this video and talk further, we will explore the difference between the two. They're two elements that have become very clear in my brain over the last 2.5 years since I've been back home in Ireland. And I want to talk to you about the difference. Because I think that opportunistic living and living with intent, that these two elements of how you live are critical going forward in this modern world and very important to the future of ourselves and our children. Opportunistic living is about taking the next sensible step. Intentional living is about choosing the direction you want to go in when you take the next step. Let's start off by being clear about what I mean by opportunistic living and what I mean by living with intent. Let's start with opportunistic living. For my whole life, my whole career, I believe that I have operated opportunistically. An opportunity has come its way and I've taken it and I've moved on. Now, there was a direction. My career was construction management and company management, and it was all part of the same structure. There was a ladder that I followed, but to some degree I was following that ladder. That ladder was there. The opportunity for me to follow that ladder was there. In the world in which we live today, the opportunity to actually follow a predefined ladder, those opportunities are getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we go by. But let's get back to the point. Opportunistic living for me is that there was a pattern, there was a company structure. I started off as a site engineer pouring concrete, setting out foundations. I moved on to an assistant site manager job. I became a finishing foreman. I moved on to a site manager. I became a project manager. I became a contracts manager, and so on until I was in C-suites as a board director of major companies across the world, not just in Ireland and the UK, where I've spent a lot of my career. That was a path. There was something to follow. I knew if I worked hard, I could get the next step on the ladder. If I worked harder, I could get the next rung on the ladder. If I worked harder, I could get to the next rung, and so on. And as they say in Ireland, agus mar sin de, which means and so on. Then that was my life up till now. Then I came back to Ireland a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago almost now. And what happened then? I'll tell you what happened. I didn't have that anymore. Now I came back to Ireland very specifically. I was going to run my own consultancy business, which I do now. But when I came back here the first time to do that, I found myself in a very different world, and I couldn't articulate or even understand half the time in my head why it was a different world. I was very successful in construction management, project management, and company management. I knew how to do that. I knew how to manage people, structure businesses, organize things, and make stuff happen. I knew how to do that. But I did that because I was taught. I was brought through a structure, a system, and I got to where I am today. Then I came back to Ireland 2.5 years ago. Right, I'm going to put all of this useful knowledge, this experience, this all that I have, and I'm going to put it into a consultancy business, and I'm going to help people to get their businesses moving and to solve problems. And I'm doing that. But then it came down to things like I had to strategize, because I can, this isn't me being big-headed, but I could do everything. I've been involved for 40 years in the whole construction process from birth to grave. From the planning process through the value engineering process, the costing process, the procurement of subcontractor processes, the management, design management, all of the processes in the workflow of a building company and a construction business. I've been heavily involved for many years. So I know how to do that. Now I could do that. Now I have to run a business too. So we're talking about intentionally, living intentionally. What does that mean? That means you have a strategy, you have a plan, you have a structure, you have a system, you've organized. You don't just have it because you got it. You have it because you sat down, you planned it, you strategized, you worked it out. And this isn't a 5-minute exercise. This requires a rewiring of the brain. Because I always knew that if I stepped into a role of an operations director or a CEO or a COO of a construction company, I knew exactly what to do. Exactly how to structure it, exactly how to manage it, and exactly how to do it. And I was always successful because I knew how to do it. Now I stepped into a world where I had to initiate everything. I had to strategize. Which of these different things that I have all these skills in am I going to use? Which of them? I don't know. I started off by doing everything. I'll offer you everything, whatever you want. I'll help you with your planning. I'll help you with your value engineering. I'll help you with cost management. I'll help you with procuring subcontract. I'll help you with all of it. And strangely enough, nobody knew what I was offering because I was offering everything. But that's a different discussion. But I had to learn how to live intentionally. So I started off by reading books on the subject and reading books on strategy and reading books on putting together, getting your mind, your head in the right place, thinking like an entrepreneur, thinking like a leader. Even though I've been leading for 40 years. Thinking intentionally means you put together a plan. You have a structure that you made. You're following that plan. It's a 5-year plan. It could be a 5-year, it could be a 10-year plan. Some of the biggest and most successful entrepreneurs in this world are people who live with intent. They live with intent because they know what they want. They have an end goal. They don't have the route to getting it, but they have an end goal. So they make a plan, they strategize, they employ people, they put a system together, they put a structure together. And what they then do is they manage and monitor. So every quarter they sit down, they look, are we on the right track? Are we still going to where we need to go? What do we need to do? What resources do we need to add? And we put that all together and we put together a system that works. That's living intentionally. Now, I'm not saying living intentionally is a good thing and living opportunistically is a bad thing. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this. In our world today, it's becoming more and more the case, without a shadow of a doubt, that careers are changing. There's not too many, there are still some of course, but there's not too many people who are working 14, 15, 20 years with a one company. Careers are changing, careers are disappearing. I'm not going to use the 2-letter word that some of that is the reason, but it's not the only reason. The world evolves, careers change. Things people used to do are not there anymore because AI is doing them. But that's not what I wanted to say. What I'm saying is we live in a different world, and going forward, it's changing all the time. The idea of somebody going to work for a company as a young guy or a young girl and working there their whole career and leaving with their golden watch at the age of 65 or 70 or whatever the retirement age is today, that's gone. That's living opportunistically. The opportunity's there and you're following it. You see the next step and you're doing the work to get to the next step. You're following it. I'm concerned in our world today that our children, not just our children, but people who have grown up in a culture of opportunistic living will not see until it's too late that the opportunities are gone. And I'm not being negative and I'm not a naysayer. I'm a real positive, glass half full kind of guy and always have been and always will be. I see opportunities in everything. But my point is the culture of opportunistic living, which 80 to 85% of all people operate within opportunistic living. And it's disappearing. The carpet's been pulled out from underneath it. We need to get people thinking about living with intent. We need from the beginning of time, or the beginning of education, from the beginning of structure, from the beginning of... We need to instill a culture of living with intent. Look, I spent many years, decades, working in the corporate career. And I absolutely would never say that that was the wrong move for me. But if I'm being honest, I moved forward for many years without really understanding whether or not I was working towards something that I consciously chose. Now, I'm not actually saying that that was wrong, but being honest, now I understand that most of my life was shaped by momentum. Opportunities came my way rather than deliberate intention. I've had a lot of success in my career, monetary and business, and satisfaction in what I've achieved. But I have to say, given the opportunity today to have focus on living life with intention, driving your own train, I would most definitely choose living life with intention. It's much more fun. Most people don't design their lives. They respond to what's in front of them. The next job, the next opportunity, the next role. This is normal human behavior. The point is that opportunistic living is common and often unconscious. For a long time, the world made this kind of living well. Big companies, corporate structures, ladders to follow. This gave people direction. Therefore, effort and ambition were always enough to keep moving forward. My point is that opportunistic living was made sensible by the structures that existed, and still to some degree exist. The world is less reliable now, and the old corporate ladders are not so structured as they used to be. If you live life only by the next step, you could very easily become adrift. In my experience in the last 2.5 years, where I have discovered the whole world of intention, it sounds a little bit insulting in some ways to actually use a phrase like that as opposed to opportunistic living. Because when I worked hard, got more experience, got more qualifications, climbed the corporate ladder and got experience from a lot of different projects and job roles, when I did that for many years, I had success and I got a lot of satisfaction from that success. The challenge, I suppose I'm trying to point out here, is that living life with intent, living life when you've got a plan and you're in the driving seat and you're in control. Now, if that means that your plan is to work for a company for 4-10 years and there is an opportunity in that company to do that, and that's your intent, that's your plan, that's great. My worry is that we have created an environment and we've created a world today where the culture of living opportunistically as opposed to a culture of living with intent, where opportunities are out there, where the ability to go and do something for yourself is there, that we've created a culture that's going to struggle to survive and struggle to work and struggle to blend and work with the new world that we've got going forward. Our world in the future will be full of a lot more entrepreneurial type people. There'll be people who need to or want to or expect to make a plan, make a structure for the business or their life and move forward in that way. Now, I speak to many business owners and I've been involved and worked with some of the highest net worth individuals in the world. And you can see the fundamental difference between people who live opportunistically, which to my mind is allowing other people to control your life, your destiny, your plan. And the people who live the people who live intentionally, who go through life with purpose. They know where they're going because they made the plan to go there. That doesn't mean they won't come across some challenges, some difficulties along the way, but they know where they're going. So the purpose of this video was to open up a conversation and to open up a mindset and a thought about a culture going forward of intention, where we teach our children, where we teach our young adults that they can plan their lives, that there can be a structure about it, that life doesn't just have to happen to you. And yes, working for a corporate company is not a bad thing, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that that's what it is. But what I am saying is make it part of your plan, part of the world that you want to work with. Living with intention is living with power, your power. Thank you for watching this video. My name is Joe. I make videos about the last couple of years of my life since I resettled and reinvented myself back in Ireland. I'm working with some very strong and very capable business owners here in Ireland and in the UK who going forward are driving their businesses with intent. Now there's economic situations, there's price rises, there's a whole load of things going on. And if you look at all of the problems and all of the challenges that go on in your life, then you'll always come to a hurdle that you can't get over. I worked for a guy many years ago, a property developer in Ireland. I had returned back to Ireland and I was a little bit anxious about the economy of Ireland. Why I was, I don't know. I was always an employee at this stage. And he said to me, he says, Joe, he says, don't worry about it. Make a plan and drive your plan. You know, economists have successfully predicted 15 out of the last 2 recessions. Put your head down, make your plan, review your plan, live your life with intention going forward. So if this kind of video, this kind of content is of any interest to you at all, like, subscribe, and give me some comments below. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.